In today's video, we're going to find out if it's possible to buy, renovate, and reopen a store from out of state.
Laundromats are in high demand here in Tampa, so we went ahead and just pulled the trigger and we just made it work.
Let's find out. Jamie, busy morning here. Tell us where we are and what's going on.
Good morning. So we're a Clean Vibes laundry company in Tampa, Florida, and it's a great morning.
Okay.
And you're here.
I'm very excited to be here. Give us a sense of the size, the equipment, like what's all in store here.
Our facility is about 2,200 square feet. We've got 28 washers, 29 dryers.
Well, we've got wash, dry, fold service, right? Tell us
yeah.
about some of the other things that you're doing beyond the self-service.
Yeah, so we've got self-service, wash, dry, fold, and we do a little bit of pickup and delivery as well.
And this is your first time as a laundromat owner, spoiler alert, but not your first foray into the laundry industry. So tell folks a little bit about how you made your way here.
I started in the laundry industry doing marketing for the Coin Laundry Association. And my background's in technology, so then I ended up being a founder in a fintech company, worked for a manufacturer, left the industry for a brief period of time, and then decided, you know, it will go really great with my coaching background, my coaching business, a laundromat.
Of course, natural as anything else.
Yes. So I said, hey, I'm gonna have my coaching business and open a laundromat to complement that. And so we purchased this business in September 2023.
Okay.
And then we renovated it and rebranded it and had that done basically beginning of January 2024.
A little bit more about the before and some of the things you had to do to get things to this level.
Yeah. Well, in this industry, of course, we know the term zombie mat. And I would say that this was like a loved zombie mat.
Okay. All right.
So it was taken care of, but we had equipment that was truly 30 years old.
Wow. Wow.
And, you know, so it really needed a full retool. And it needed more than a retool. It really needed like renovations and things like that. So we purchased the business knowing that we were going to renovate and had a plan for all of that right out of the gate.
So was there some utility upgrades that had to be done in order to accept the new equipment? Is that part of the picture? Okay.
Yep. So more makeup air, and we actually also had to update all of the plumbing, which was not part of the original plan.
Okay. Okay. Well, those are the little surprises that have dollar signs and zeros and commas.
They do. Yes.
But you persisted and got things open. So how did it feel like on that day? Like you really felt like you had it together. You had the new branding and the decor to match the equipment. It must have been a good feeling of accomplishment that you really brought the store to the next level.
Yeah, it was. When we started with the Clean Vibes brand, I'm a big yogi, and for me, it is kind of all about the vibes sometimes, you know, and I wanted to make sure that people knew two things, right? Like that they knew that they were going to come here and their clothes were going to be much cleaner leaving than coming in, right? Because sometimes you wonder.
Right.
And then the second thing is that they're always going to have like a good experience. Like I want them to feel good. Obviously laundry is a chore, but we want them to feel good when they come here.
Well, I think that's a nice acknowledgement of, you know, two things that we talk about a lot, which is long dwell time and recurring visits, right? So if you want them to become regular customers, they need to enjoy their time, and setting the tone with the Clean Vibes goes a long way toward, yes, they want to get their clothes clean, but you know, where else are they going to be spending an hour and a half a week or 2 hours a week maybe?
Right, yes. And so for me, like I didn't want to do like kind of like a traditional laundromat brand. So I was like, I'm not doing bubbles, I'm not doing blue.
Okay.
You know, nothing against either one of those things, but I just wanted to do something that was different, that felt fresh, and kind of Florida, right? We're in the middle of Florida and wanted to reflect that.
Yeah, have those vibes. So what was the reaction like from customers? I imagine you had some customers that came back after 3.5 weeks, and I bet you got a lot of good feedback.
I did, yes. So we've got a really incredible community here, and we've got customers that have been coming here probably since this laundromat was built in 1984.
Wow, 84, and this is 25, okay.
Yeah, so you know, we've got people just that come in, they're like, you know, I came here with my grandma, and then, you know, I bring my kids here, and now I bring my grandkids here. So this is a community establishment, and they definitely were very grateful, that we were able to give them something that they really needed.
So they connected with the vibes.
They did.
As you intended. All right, Jamie, I want to see these clean vibes for myself. Will you show us around?
Absolutely, let's
Okay,
go.
great. Here we are out front at Clean Vibes. Tell us a little bit more about the location, demographics, where we're situated, and why you like the location to begin with.
We're on a pretty busy street here. So we're on MLK in Tampa, just a little bit north of Ybor, for those of you who are familiar with the area. And we've got about 70,000 cars that go past here.
We can hear them right now.
Yeah, a pretty busy street. When we think about locations, we want to think about how easy is it for us to turn in to the facility from both directions. And so we've got a nice access from both sides, which is great. We've got a pretty good amount of parking.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So it's easy to get into the facility. It's right on the main strip, so it's not tucked behind any of the other businesses or anything like that.
Okay.
So those were some things that originally stood out to me.
All right, should we take a look inside?
Let's go.
Okay, let's take a look. Okay, we're inside, feels good, looks good. So why don't we head down this direction? I guess the first thing I see is your couple of branded vending machines.
Yes.
So here's the convenience for your customers. Tell us how you came up with that. I think it's pretty clever to do the wrap on the machines like you did.
I felt like it was really important just to brighten up the space and make sure that everything in the facility is kind of on brand, because I always think about brands like a person, what's your name, what do you look like, what kind of clothes do you wear. And so I don't really think of laundromats a whole lot different. And so for me, I'm like, hey, this is part of the Clean Vibes experience.
We've got our first dryer row that we're going to see here, and we've got some of the two-load machines here on this side and some larger machines on this side. So tell us a little bit about the equipment mix in here.
Yeah, so we have 18, 20s, we've got 30s, 40s, 60s, and 180.
And now we've got a dryer wall here, so give us the breakdown. We've got a couple of large single pockets and then some stacks along the way. Tell us how you came up with that mix.
Obviously there's a formula to support the washers and the dryers, and so we've got an 80-pound dryer. I wish I had two.
Okay, we hear that a lot. We hear that a lot. Wish I had two.
I wish I had two 80-pound washers, but I can still add one. I wish I had two of the larger dryers, so maybe later down the road. But then from there, we chose to have a mix of 30 and 50-pound dryers. We price full cycle drying.
Okay, well tell us a little bit more about, for
Yeah.
those that aren't aware of the full cycle concept, why don't you give them a little flavor of what that means?
So you always want to think about customer convenience, and the fact is that it's more convenient to pay once and push one button than it is to keep checking every couple minutes and feeding more quarters and it's not dry yet. And so knowing that we've got 200G washers, which are going to have a higher extract than some washers, so knowing that their clothes are going to be relatively dry,
dampish,
going in, and then knowing that our dryers are highly efficient, we said, it's actually going to be a better customer experience and better operationally for us to do one price to get all of your clothes dry.
Yeah, and we are seeing a lot of people adopting that strategy. And so how have you decided to kind of price that across these different sizes, right? Because I made you want to give a different cycle time or different price point or both based on the capacity. So how did you approach that? The
dryers were priced by the quarter before, so it was kind of like just pick something,
Okay.
It was like assess what the market is, and then kind of come in where you think that you're offering good value, but meeting the margin expectations.
Okay. Right. So they also have a little bit of choice between 80, 50, and 30, in terms of what they want to spend, what their loads are, and so that makes a lot of sense to me, and good to see the full cycle pricing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Let's wander down this way, and so we're going to come up the main aisle here, and we've got some of your 4-load and 3-load machines here. So this seems like a natural place for people to get started when they come in.
Yes, absolutely. We were thinking about okay, what's the average household, what do they need, and how do we make it easy for them to access those machines. Ideally, I would have liked to have put the larger machines like right up front, but when we were doing the store layout, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Since this was an existing laundromat, we have concrete pads, is what they're called, to elevate the machines so that the water will drain properly from that equipment. And, you know, there was much, questioning, like, do we get rid of the pads? Do we keep the pads? You know, and so there was just an element of like, how do, we're inheriting a space, so we need
there's
to
a lot
work.
of cost considerations to that. So with these soft mount machines, you don't necessarily need the pad.
Right.
But I'm sure it was very expensive to consider removing them. But I think it looks, walk us through your payment corner here.
Yes, so this is our payment center, and thinking about like Amazon, right? We always want to think about how do we make it really easy for people to pay? What's intuitive? And so we've got two options. They can either purchase a card for $1 from one of our value add centers, or they can download the free mobile app and use their phones. And most people tend to go towards the cards as opposed to the mobile app. Of course, we could make a bigger push to encourage more customers to download the app. But typically when people are first coming in, they want to get in and they want to start their laundry and they want to get out. And so even though the amount of time might not be dramatically different between explaining how to use the card and using the app, there are a few more steps. And so we typically just try to make it super fast.
Well, I see that you branded the mobile option. I see over your shoulder, I see the laundry cat.
Yes, yes.
What was your thought behind that? I think it's a cute touch to sort of personalize that option for people.
Yes. Well, here's the truth. People don't read, right? And so obviously signs are needed. And especially in laundromats, there's a lot of signs that you potentially might need. And so I wanted to come up with basically the easiest, simplest way to tell people what they needed to do and what their options were. And so I've got a great group of graphic designers that I work with, and kind of put this together, and here we have it.
No, looks terrific. Very good. Well, let's head down this way. Now we're getting into the large capacity machines here. You got your 60s on here, and they're right across from your wash, dry, fold counter. So tell us a little bit about the wash, dry, fold part of your business.
Yeah, so we've got a growing wash, dry, fold operation. When we purchased the business, it really wasn't doing a whole lot, maybe $1,800, $2,000 a month. So we've been able to grow that pretty significantly, both through residential and commercial business. And, wash, dry, fold it, like having somebody else do your clothes for you is a luxury. A lot of times, people don't have the time, or they just want to treat themselves, right? And so we've been really focused on how do we provide a consistent experience that reflects that little everyday luxury that people are looking for.
What are 2 or 3 things you would tell folks about what's been successful in marketing this part of the business?
So one thing that's changed over, I would say, like the past 7 years or so is the importance of SEO. So SEO has always been important. However, local SEO with changes from Google and Apple Maps and things like that, it has become more important. And where pre-COVID, you could get some articles or some news coverage and really kind of ramp up your SEO, the news has changed. And so you really need to focus on your local SEO. And so that really is one of the most important ways. I think also having a good website is really important. So part of that is a SEO play, and then part of that is just like letting customers know what they can expect and answer questions and say like, hey, this is a legitimate business. and we're here for you. So however you want to get your clothes clean, we'll help you do it.
Now, does that marketing mix get tweaked at all when you're talking specifically about the commercial accounts, or is it about the same in your view?
Well, for self-service, I would actually say that a website might not be as important, but I would like to put a big asterisk on that, because
we'll
it's
put one
still,
on screen here.
Yeah, we'll put it on the screen. Because a website is always important, right? If this is laundromats are a legitimate retail business, and I think consumers these days expect all retailers to think like that. And so you may not see the benefit of having a website as much for your self-service business, but I think it's still really important because, again, it speaks to the professionalism of what you offer. Now, when you're looking at wash, dry, fold, commercial, and pickup and delivery, it's hugely important, right? There's so many more questions. You want FAQs. Well, what does it look like? Well, what are the hours? Do I need to bring my own bag? People have a lot of questions. Do I need to be
get
home?
them comfortable with becoming a first-time customer, right?
Yeah.
By answering those basic questions.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Do you mind if we take a walk around behind the counter?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's go. We want to see all these bundles of laundry back here.
Yes. So this is a working laundromat.
As it should be. As it should be.
This is a working laundromat. And a lot of times laundromat owners will say, "What size facility should I have?" And at 2,200 square feet, which is the whole thing, including the back, you can say, well, maybe that's a decent size. However, if you want to build for the future, then ideally, maybe you have more square footage.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about back here. One is storage space, which I know is at a premium,
Yes.
but you're making good use of it here, and I think that's, like you said, that's what we hear from so many people. It's kind of like be careful what you wish for. You start to grow that wash, dry, fold, and commercial, and then you run out of space.
Yep.
But,
Good problem to have.
Good problem to have. We want to make that happen. The other thing I can't help but notice is that you're doing some over-the-counter sales of soap and detergent products. So
Yes.
Tell us how that is being managed and how that's working out for you.
Again, going back to the customer convenience, we offer smaller bottles of both liquid and powder in our vending machine, which customers, they use the same laundry card system to pay for both snacks and soap. So super convenient. And then if they want larger bottles, then we offer those behind us, because again, it's just like, hey, do you have a lot of laundry or you have a little bit? And we just want to make it really easy for
And they're
customers.
still paying with their card if they're buying over the counter?
They can pay with their card.
Okay.
They can pay with cash or they can pay with credit card.
All right, good.
So-
Good. And then you're managing all this. I see a point of sale system here. So why don't you give us a little bit of rundown of what this does for you and how it's working out?
Yeah, so this is our point of sale system and it's super easy to use. Our employees have different backgrounds, right? So to me, one of the important things was how simple, easy, and intuitive is the system that we're going to put in place, because it's got to be easily and quickly understood.
Well, you need to be able to train someone up pretty quickly, right?
Absolutely. So it's really helpful because, I can access this system from anywhere, see how the store's doing, see what our employees are doing throughout the day. And it provides a really good customer experience. So they're going to get a text message when their order is created. They can pay through a link on their text message. They can pay here at the counter. They can set up a subscription for their delivery service. And so again, we're just trying to make it really easy for the customer.
All right, Jamie, tell us a little bit more about the time commitment and managing, maybe in some cases remote management. So give us a little bit of your history of how you've been managing the business here.
Well, I always say that laundromats will take basically as much time as you want to give it. And so my dad always says, like, whatever you own owns you. And I have found that to be true.
Okay.
And
Dad's right sometimes, right?
So going into the laundromat industry, I was like, how do I want to run this business? And what do I have capacity for? And what makes sense just from a business perspective? How much time does that look like? It really ebbs and flows, just depending on if I'm hiring somebody, if, maybe we've got things like a hurricane impacting
Sure.
the business.
I mean, just about anything can happen, right?
Anything can happen. And so it definitely has like ebbed and flowed. I think the fortunate thing is that we do have staff here 12 hours a day. And so they're able to cover off on a lot of things. I also recently added a part-time manager to the team, but actually you kind of would think like, oh, you add a manager and maybe you get a little less time. And I think that will be true. But there's also just like an investment in like training your team for the future and laying that groundwork so that you can expand. And so that's kind of the season that I'm in. On the low end, I would say that maybe it's 4 hours a week. If I've got somebody who can't come in for a shift, which happens occasionally, and sometimes my husband or myself are here. Yeah. Right. It's not all the time, but it happens. If I'm training somebody new, I mean, you could easily spend 15 hours a week on the conservative side.
Well, you got to tell me a little bit about when you were out of state.
Yes.
When you first purchased the business, and so what were the circumstances there, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Yes. So I actually wanted to purchase a laundromat in 2020, and laundromats are in high demand here in Tampa, and I didn't actually get the opportunity to open one or purchase one until 2023. So we had a few years go by. In that period of time, I moved from Tampa to Columbus, Ohio, where we lived for 2 years. And it was during that period with a 4-month-old that I got a phone call, and they said, hey, we have a laundromat for you. And I think it's like one of those things where you can have these great plans, but then sometimes that's just not how life goes. And so you say, yep, I still want to do it. And I knew we would be back in Tampa, and so we went ahead and just pulled the trigger, and we just made it work.
Well, Jamie, I know that giving back is a big part of your vibe,
Yes.
And that includes a number of different things I'd like you to talk about, including the association. So tell us about kind of giving back and some of the things that you're engaged in, and maybe a little bit about the association.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because I would actually say that the giving back portion actually is part of what inspired me to get into the business. I've got a friend who travels around the country doing free laundry events, and I had just gotten my yoga certification, and I said, one of the things that would go really well with free laundry events is free yoga and meditation. Wellness, yes. Yeah. And I said, hey, this is a group that I would love to help them learn how to be in their bodies. And so that was actually the inspiration that sparked me saying, oh, I actually want to be in this business because I see it as an opportunity to serve communities of all kinds. So that's actually the inspiration, and I've always really had a soft spot for CLA. From my time working at CLA, I just saw firsthand the immense value that CLA brings to our industry, and we have such a thriving industry, and a lot of that is due to the work that CLA does. So I knew getting back into the industry that I wanted to serve with CLA, and also just kind of spread the awareness about the things that CLA does and why it's really important to be involved.
Well, and I just think it's a cool sort of symmetry from being on staff with us 10 plus years ago to now being a volunteer member on our board of directors. So, super proud of all the progress that you've made and all that you've given back, and for us to be here today is just really cool.
Yeah, it is super cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. All right, Jamie, one of the other questions we get a lot of when it comes to this industry and getting started, I'm sure you have a lot of clients that ask you about, well, what does it take to do this financially? And, how do you size that up? You see people talking about very low entry level points, and you hear about these gazillion-dollar stores. So kind of how did that shake out for you?
So I think that's part of like the beauty of the industry is that you kind of get to choose your own adventure. Typically, your initial investment for your first laundromat might be a little bit more than subsequent laundromats. We purchased this business for about $200,000. And all in, we were a little over $300,000 on a cash investment. to get started. I think sometimes people are surprised at how much laundromats actually cost. And so this one is actually just under $1 million.
Right, because all the equipment that you put in right away
Yep.
is a big part of that.
Yep. So buying the business, putting in the equipment, updating the facility, because you're not going to put in nice new equipment and then not upgrade your facility. And then there's working capital, right? So what it takes to market a new business, to brand a new business the way you want to, all of those things.
Because there is
take
a ramping
dollars.
up period, right? Even though this was an existing store and you put all the time in to renovate, it still takes time to ramp up those numbers.
It does. And, I feel very fortunate that after our initial investment, the business pretty much cash flowed. And so I think that's always what I shoot for with my clients for the most part, is how fast can we ramp up their business through things like marketing.
Right.
And so that worked for me. And so
Well,
I'm grateful
sometimes
for that.
you work hard and you have a winner, right? It cash flows right away. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Kind of that amount of debt service that you're taking on has
Right.
a big role to play in that
Yeah.
cash flow equation. So
Well, and how big the facility is, right? So this is a smaller laundromat. So to cash flow a laundromat that's 2,200 square feet versus a laundromat that's 5,000 or 7,000 square feet, those numbers are going to look a little bit different.
okay. So now that you're a couple years in and you got your $1 million invested, how are you feeling about how that investment's working out for you, and what are you looking at perhaps down the road?
Yeah, I'm really happy with our initial investment. I'm also very grateful that I intentionally was a little bit conservative. I have dreams of, building bigger and nicer facilities. But the truth is that we wanted to make sure that we had a really good investment thesis out of the gate. And I don't think that there's any substitution for just hands-on learning. This really is a full business operation. And so there's a lot of infrastructure that goes on to help a business work successfully. That will make it much easier to scale for future facilities. One thing I've learned over the past 5 years, if I didn't know it before, is that you really can't force things and you can't rush things. And so I think it pays off to be patient.
It's the hardest thing to do, but
it's so hard.
But it's the best advice.
And so knowing, hey, we've got a pretty full plate right now. We're open to expanding when we find the right locations. And in the meantime, we're just going to do the very best that we possibly can do with what we have.
Yeah, and still a lot of upside potential here at Clean Vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we continue to grow. Summer is definitely slower. It's a good bit slower than maybe some people realize, or at least in this market. I think other markets maybe not as much, but this one is quite a bit slower in the summer. And the beauty is that because we took a conservative approach, it still is profitable.
Yeah, you can handle those lulls, which are natural, seasonality, ebb and flow of the business.
Yeah. So, but yeah, month over month, we're, consistently growing. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Well, Jamie, I know you have an expertise in all things wellness and do a lot of coaching around that, but you're a human being, you're a business owner, and burnout is a real issue. So what can you share with us about how you've tried to keep yourself in the right spot with all the craziness that comes with being a business owner?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And the truth is, I'm a little tired. That's just the truth. And I think there's seasons and rhythms to life, right? Like we've got a calendar, but then there's seasons where you've got little kids and things like that, right? And so you do your best to kind of prioritize. And I have a good amount of energy, which might be a surprise.
No, I'm not surprised.
And but even I'm like, okay, I think we need to dial it down a little bit. And the blessing in that is that I get to be intentional, and that I have the luxury of saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to dial this down, and I'm going to prioritize these things, and I'm going to let these other things go, or I'm going to shift them.
Right, because you don't operate a business in a vacuum. Like, it's kids and family and
No.
other things you're committed to, so
No.
you can't do it all.
No, so typically entrepreneurs get into business for one of three reasons. So it's either for the money, the flexibility of their time and freedom, and to serve, right? So it's usually some hierarchy of those three.
Makes sense.
And for me, knowing that my husband works a lot, so the flexibility plays into me choosing to be an entrepreneur with a few businesses. Also to be able to prioritize time with my 2-year-old.
Right.
So that's super important to me.
For the newbies, the rookies, the aspiring first-time laundromat owners watching, what are a couple nuggets, wisdom, some advice that you give people that are just getting started?
Well, I think the most important thing is really to trust your vision and to have confidence in your vision. You're unique. You're unique, everybody's unique. And so we all have like our own strengths, gifts, and abilities. And so I think it's really important to be true to that. Because you might be seeing something that somebody else doesn't see. I think that's super important. You can choose to be more conservative in your initial investment and maybe you just fix up an older laundromat, or maybe you go all in and you invest a significant amount of money to get to the business. So I would say do it your way. And then the other way is to make sure that you find good partners and to do your research. So CLA is just a partner that I strongly urge you to get involved with CLA, because you don't know what you don't know. And so you need to pick good educational partners like CLA. You need to pick good distributors and other third-party service providers. So I think that is hugely important.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice. We appreciate the kind words about the association, but it's really about building your laundromat IQ, building out your laundromat community, and that's just going to lead to better results. By joining CLA, you get the best of what's available in the industry: education, networking, representation when it comes to advocacy and support, and business solutions to help you run your laundromat better. So make more money, save more money, and get connected to the best operators in the country.